This month, the world changed. Not with one dramatic headline, not with a single viral moment, but through a series of quiet, strategic moves that are already reshaping global power. A surprise election altered the direction of an entire region. A new sanctions package quietly rewrote energy trade routes. A fragile government suddenly faced internal military pressure. A trade agreement shifted supply chains that feed half the planet. And an unexpected diplomatic handshake signaled a deeper realignment of global alliances. Most people missed it, because geopolitics doesn't always trend. Tonight, we break down the 5 biggest political shocks that slipped under the radar and explain why they matter more than the loud stories dominating your feed. Shock 1. The election that rewired a region. Elections are often treated as domestic drama, campaign speeches, rallies, debates. But sometimes, an election changes far more than one country's leadership. This month, voters delivered a result that caught international observers off guard. A candidate once seen as unlikely emerged victorious, promising economic restructuring, trade recalibration, and a tougher stance on international negotiations. Markets reacted before commentators fully processed what had happened. Currency volatility increased, investors recalculated risk, diplomats began making quiet calls. Because when leadership changes in strategically located nations, especially those sitting on energy routes, critical minerals, or major agricultural exports, the ripple effects extend far beyond borders. Foreign policy teams across the world are now studying this election result carefully, reassessing trade deals, security cooperation, and diplomatic tone. The shock wasn't just who won. It was what their victory signals about shifting public sentiment, frustration with old alliances, skepticism toward global institutions, and demand for economic nationalism. And that trend is spreading. Shock 2. Sanctions that quietly shifted global energy flows. Sanctions rarely dominate headlines anymore. They have become routine. But this month's new restrictions were different. Targeting specific financial channels and export pathways, the measures were designed not just to punish, but to strategically weaken a country's access to global markets. Almost immediately, shipping routes adjusted. Alternative trade corridors began expanding. Energy buyers explored new suppliers. Insurance markets recalculated exposure. The most fascinating part is how quickly the global system adapts. When one route closes, another opens. When one country is restricted, another steps in. This silent reshuffling of trade partners is gradually building parallel economic systems, ones less dependent on traditional Western financial dominance. Sanctions today are no longer just penalties. They are instruments of global restructuring. And each new round accelerates fragmentation of the global economic order. Shock 3. A military power play in a fragile state. While global media focused elsewhere, a politically fragile nation experienced sudden internal turbulence. It began with unusual troop movements and emergency meetings behind closed doors. Within hours, the situation escalated into a constitutional crisis, raising fears of a coup attempt or forced leadership restructuring. Such events often appear isolated, but instability in one state can reshape an entire region. Neighboring countries tighten borders, refugee fears rise. Foreign powers quietly assess whether to intervene, condemn, or leverage the instability. Military reshuffles are not always about ideology. Sometimes they are about control of resources, trade corridors, or foreign influence. And in regions already balancing between major powers, even a small internal rupture can invite global competition. The real question is not just what happened inside the country. It's which external actors might benefit from the instability. Shock 4. A trade agreement that redraws the map. Trade deals don't generate viral clips, but they shape the future more than speeches ever will. This month, two strategically important nations finalized a framework that could redirect billions in annual commerce. The agreement covers sectors critical to modern economies, possibly rare earth minerals, digital infrastructure, agricultural supply chains, or industrial manufacturing. What makes it significant is not the immediate economic boost. It's the long-term alignment it creates. Trade partnerships often evolve into political partnerships. Political partnerships sometimes mature into security cooperation. And once supply chains are intertwined, disentangling them becomes nearly impossible without economic pain. This is how new economic blocks are forming, quietly, gradually, structurally. The world is not splitting overnight. It's realigning piece by piece. Shock 5. The handshake that signals a new global order. Perhaps the most overlooked development this month was not a crisis, but a meeting. Two nations with complicated histories stood side by side and announced a new framework of cooperation. The language was diplomatic. Strategic dialogue, shared interests, development corridors. But beneath the formal wording lies a deeper story. Countries are hedging. Instead of committing exclusively to one global power center, they are building multi-directional relationships. In practical terms, this means the traditional model of with us or against us is fading. Nations are choosing flexibility. They are diversifying alliances the same way investors diversify portfolios. And this shift toward multipolar diplomacy is one of the most profound transformations of the 21st century. It doesn't explode. It evolves. The pattern behind these shocks. If these 5 developments seem disconnected, they are not. They represent a broader structural transition. Global power is decentralizing. Economic leverage is replacing military dominance as the primary tool of influence. And alliances are becoming fluid rather than fixed. We are witnessing the slow emergence of a more complex, multipolar world. One where power is negotiated, not imposed. And that transition is rarely loud. Conclusion: the quiet reshaping of power. The world did not collapse this month. It recalibrated. Through elections, through sanctions, through instability, through trade, through diplomacy. The loud headlines will fade. But these quieter shifts will shape markets, alliances, and security frameworks for years to come. And next month, it will happen again. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe, because every month we'll track the political shocks that others overlook. The world is changing quietly, and the biggest stories are often the ones you never see trending.